In the previous video, we saw how to declare a data provider to return a structure corresponding to a simple SDT to whoever invokes it. We finished by seeing how to return that information from a database record. Let's move to the case where we wanted to display a collection of items of the type of the Traction Info SDT in this other web panel. That is why we had defined two variables, one of the simple SDT data type and another collection. It was that collection variable that we ultimately inserted into the web layout, which remained as a grid that loaded automatically. This way, we could add an item to the collection and then another one, hard-coded. The first question is how to achieve this same thing with a data provider, meaning what declaration is required for the data provider so that it returns this identical collection right here. Let's start by observing that in the Show Attractions web panel, we effectively had a grid associated with the Attractions List collection variable. Let's add the Flights Arrivals member to the grid, which is missing. We populate this collection variable during the start event, in this case from the database. Let's comment out this code, because now we want to assign to the collection variable what is returned by a data provider, which we will call like this. To go faster, let's ask Alexa for the following. We see that it created a data provider with two attraction info groups, hard-coded, one for each item in the collection. And we see that the two groups appear inside another one that encompasses them, which it called attractions. If we observe the properties, we can see that the output property specifies the identical attraction info SDT, but now the collection property is turned on as true. And it has been given as the internal name of the collection, this attractions, which is the name of the external group we see in the source. We should save the data provider and then press the F5 key. We see the grid with the two lines we expected. With everything we have seen, it should now be quite clear how to achieve the loading of the collection from the database within the data provider, specifically displaying the attractions located in Paris. In the web panel, we did this via code using the for each loop. In the data provider, it will be analogous, which signifies that the output will be a collection composed of items belonging to the attraction info SDT type. These are these two properties. Here is another possible equivalent version. It makes no difference to write the attractions collection group or not to do so, as in the first case, because it is stated here anyway. You can even specify the clauses that determine the base table and the filters there, or do it directly on the group corresponding to the items. Or we could even utilize this other form, which is entirely equivalent. That is, the group corresponding to the collection can be written, or not. And the base transaction clauses and filters can be positioned either at the level of the collection's name or the name of the output SDT. Let's go modify the data provider. We can leave it like this. Let's test. We see the two Paris attractions. Let's observe that in the navigation listing of the Get Attractions List data provider, it says for each attraction. Although we never wrote a for each, the navigation logic is identical, and that is why we see the for each in the listing. To corroborate this, we will again perform the loading by code in the start event of Show Attractions by uncommenting this section and commenting out the call directed to the data provider, and adding here the Paris filter. Let's execute. There is no difference at all in the navigation listing. And of course, neither in execution. We should now revert to configuring the web panel to load the collection variable using the data provider. As we said, it is indifferent to include or omit the external group, the one that names the collection. Thus, if we remove it, the result is exactly the same. Lastly, we should note that we also have the option to configure the data provider to load a mix of items, some from the database and others hard-coded. For instance, alongside these items retrieved from the database, let's add one hard-coded item. Let's execute. The first two lines are those from the database, and the last one is the hard-coded one. To summarize, the data provider object enables us to return data structures encompassing both simple types and collections, loaded in a more declarative way and therefore more easily understandable. It is enough to compare the code-based solution on the left, which requires declaring two variables and reserving memory, add to the collection, and on the right with the data provider, which allows access to the database in a way equivalent to the for each loop. That being said, it will be clear that exactly the same clauses as in the for each are admitted. For example, the order. Thus, if this was the syntax of the for each command, here we have the syntax to perform the same navigation, but for a group of a data provider, remembering that a group will correspond to an item or collection. Its use is very specific, which is to return preloaded STTs or collections composed of STTs.